let's kick it off. How are you?
How am I? That's a good question. I had a client just now who said, "How is everything?" And I was a bit like overwhelmed. But then even that question, "How are you?" is takes some thinking about. But in a nutshell, I am, yeah, in that part of my life where there are lots of demands in all directions, and it's just a matter of trying to stay present and as you move through that. But yeah, I'm fine, Rob. Yeah.
So that's a really good demonstration of when there's maybe a larger conversation to have, it can be easy to say I'm fine. Because to try and categorize everything that's going on and present it in a conversation is sometimes too hard. I had the very same thing happen this morning. Someone asked me, "How are you?" And I had a big kind of, could talk about this, I could talk about that. I'm fine. There's things going on. Well, I'm glad you're fine. And you said it sounded like you were saying it's part of the journey, that you're just going to get through this, or you're going through this.
Yeah, and I know that we're here to talk about purpose, and I think your relationship to purpose really changes as you move through life. It's not, we talk about a golden thread and the golden thread of purpose, and I think there's truth in that, but I also think that your relationship to it changes.
A golden thread. So can you just tell us what that means to you, this golden thread of purpose?
So I'm pretty sure that if any of us told some stories from every decade of our life from the age of 4, you'd probably be able to identify a golden thread of who you are and the impact you have on the world. And for me, those are the two sides of the coin with purpose. And that golden thread, I think, is there. And if we sort of tell those stories and identify those kind of crucible moments in our lives, then that's your purpose, really. I think storytelling is probably the fundamental way to connect back to purpose. That's what I've found anyway in the work that I do, and for myself as well.
I would say I agree wholly with what you said, in that I believe everyone's been living out a purpose, which means they've been purposeful, but they may not have summed it up by saying, "This is my purpose." So when you have somebody take the time to either just observe somebody and reflect, I think this is their purpose, or you help somebody have that conversation, then you may end up with that sentence, my purpose is. And you and I are both trained coaches, so we've been through that. I'll come on to what your purpose is in a minute, but I love the idea of the golden thread of who you are. Then when you are that way, you're then having an impact whether you know it or not. And you said about that there's the two sides of the coin of purpose. So this kind of golden thread of who you're being, you're the best version of yourself, if you like. And then the other side of that coin is the impact. Is that correct? Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And I should share that I work mainly with educators. And so when it comes to purpose, you ask a teacher, "What's your purpose?" And like, don't miss a beat, to make a difference. And and the next question is, so what's the unique difference that only you can make? Ooh. And then the response might be, "There's nothing unique about me." And then you might get into some storytelling and actually surface the unique difference that only you can have. And actually the part of the coin that's harder for people to accept is their genius, is their gift, because often that comes very easily. And that's the point. And I think that's when you ignite someone, when people really see, accept, and embody their gifts and their strengths and their magic and their power. And that's the part that takes a little bit more work, because we're so besieged by, you know, education has this culture of improvement. You can always be better and better and better and better. And so just to be with what is and who you are is quite subversive. So I think that actually connecting to purpose, attuning to it, and then living it is a disruptive act, which is kind of why I was drawn to it as an educator, because I think teachers don't make great soldiers. That's why we get restless. And you just need that kind of space and time and conversation to remember, like I say, the magic you make, and therefore the impact you have. And I just, you know, what if all educators could have that? It would be unstoppable. Obviously, we're saying this in the context of strikes that are happening across the UK at the moment, and we're not supported particularly well by government policy. So that's another systemic issue.
Yeah. And just for our audience, I mean, I used to be a teacher, so I've lived through some. What you're saying really resonates, and yes, we could have lots of conversations about in and around teaching. I'm going to bring you back to the coin, because I've written down a few notes as I do these interviews. So the two sides of the coin: the golden thread of who you're being when you're at the height of how you can be. The other side of the coin is the impact. And then you said about this genius, which is harder to find, maybe harder to own. It sounds like teachers are selfless. So, I'm not extraordinary. I'm just here to make a difference. But I think I think it's easy to say, when in fact there's some ownership to be taken over an individual's brilliance. And I think maybe that's the edge of the coin. So the genius is the edge, and you're helping if you throw a coin onto a table, it's going to fall usually one way or the other. Rarely does it just roll to a stop on its edge. It sounds like there is value in helping a teacher or helping someone notice the edge of their coin.
Yeah, I love the way you flip that to create a new possibility. So if I've understood that right, Rob, you've got the side of the coin which is impact, the side of the coin which is like who you are at your greatest. And then so when you say genius, how are you understanding that to be different?
I think maybe through being explicitly aware. Because when you're aware, you can take ownership over it. Maybe when you're not aware, you can come up with a comment such as, "Oh, I'm not, I'm just a teacher." And I think, I know that you do this, is as a coach, you will help somebody explore that and help them stand back from themselves and look at that. Because when we do, then we get to exploit that. Maybe that's the wrong term.
Leverage.
But we get leverage. Yeah.
I'd never thought of it like that, and I think you're onto something, because we can certainly cognitively know or be told or even say aloud, that we're this and we have this impact, but until we have the capacity and we've done the inner work to accept that, then we can be that coin that lands slightly differently.
Tell me, so you used to be an English teacher. You were deputy head of English, I think, at one time.
Bob, come on, give me.
Sorry. Well, I think LinkedIn needs updating then.
Oh dear. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I did try to make sure it's correct. Sorry, head of English. Was that in Petersfield?
No, it was in South London.
South London, okay. Tell me about a time when you noticed the edge of a coin in a child, a pupil, and you made them aware of it.
Good question. And that is exactly the question that I would ask a teacher in order to elevate their purpose. I see what you're doing. I think there was. I'm remembering a Year 7 boy who had English as a second language and had a teaching assistant, and we were exploring a novel called The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, which is this fable about the Holocaust. Anyway, that was the subject of the novel, and we were just sort of exploring the themes of that novel, and we were kind of acting it out a little bit, I think. And there was a moment when he realized that these two main characters were mirroring each other and they were connected. And I guess it was just the fact that he just realized it, and he was just so delighted that he had captured actually the heart of the story, and then everything else was kind of unlocked. So I guess maybe it's a bit cliched, but I guess it's that moment of understanding. And actually another story is coming to me, which is maybe is connected, you'll be able to tell me. is I taught media studies, and so this was in Streatham in South London, and so the kids would go out and they'd make documentaries, they'd make films that meant something to them, and they'd fall out, they'd have massive arguments, the equipment wouldn't work, it'd be raining, I mean, they'd be really grumpy about it. And then me and this wonderful colleague who I adore, Trisha, used to put on like the Oscars. Well, it was a school called Dunraven, so we called it the Dafters, actually. And all the kids dressed up, they organised everything, and they saw their films in a cinema on the big screen, and watching their work and the quality of the work, I was absolutely overwhelmed by it, and nothing I ever do will be as important as that. There was something really transcendent in that experience. Yeah.
Wow. I love how there's a building of a memory there, starting with the Year 7 boy and how that was a stepping stone onto the Dafters. So you saw the impact the children were having. You saw the way that how they were being, the thread. Okay. Did you have a conversation about the edge of that coin for them? Did you talk about what they'd done? Did you make them aware of the impact they were having?
That wasn't kind of back in the day. This was before I kind of got to coaching and got to a deeper relationship with purpose. I don't know if I needed to have that conversation. I mean, interestingly, my daughter a little while ago said to me, "Who was your favorite kid when you were a teacher?" And I was like, "I know exactly who that is." And I just put him in LinkedIn, and he's a film director.
No way. Okay.
Yeah, he's a film director, he's award-winning. And then I think certainly another two of that class. I know one's a film editor in Melbourne. And we just created something really special. And I think when it comes to my purpose, it's something about magic. It's something about creating a kind of magic in a room, and if you're a teacher, you know what this is. It's kind of a flow state in a room where you're all connected. there's an incredible sense of belonging. You've got a shared purpose. And there was something really magical there that I think they remember as well, and that they took with them. Not everyone, let's be honest, but
sure.
But it was a really precious experience, and I don't think I knew how much it meant until it had, 2 or 3 years later. Yeah.
So then there's a demonstration of the power of remembering a story.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
It's all there. It's all there. Yeah.
It's all there, yeah. So we may not realize it in the moment how special it is, but when we can stand back from it, when we're outside of it, maybe a little bit, looking back, clearly you can see the magic, the special memories that those pupils had. You talked about shared purpose. That interests me, because there's a difference between an individual's purpose and how they can connect with others who may have an overlap in terms of purpose, and maybe that overlap is the shared purpose. But in terms of your purpose, there's something about magic. Sounds like a creative space.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think, your purpose kind of ebbs and flows. And I think if I was to be honest, which is very difficult not to be, with you, Rob, I would say that, I'm not sure right now, and I think, we go through these transitions in life and we change and stuff happens and you ask yourself the question anew. But I think you're right. I think the golden thread, there is something around magic there. And I think you're right. And there's something about creativity.
I love your honesty, and I think it's true. The ebbs and flows, we can feel disconnected. Things can kind of get in the way of that connection, so we don't feel that flow or the energy that we would associate with being purposeful. Do you know what kind of things disconnect you? Can you identify something that can disconnect somebody from their purpose?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I'm interested that I'm going to other people. That's easier, isn't it? So I'll do that. I think it's, I think if you get too busy, I think if you don't install the practices that you need, do the things that bring you joy, have clear boundaries, keep coming back to it. I think it's that constant, like you said, the awareness building and connecting back to awareness. I think it really helps to articulate it. I also think it helps to embody it. So, we certainly did work where you would have the phrase, but then you would feel kind of each word in your body and what that did to your body and how you stand and the energy that was created. And then you might have a kind of embodied practice, which might be centering and then, articulating. We know that change is more possible if we operate on lots of different channels. So that might be language, movement, body. So I think that can help install it. And yeah, I haven't done that for a while because I have been busy. And I think that's probably, and certainly that it won't surprise you then that teachers, who are some of the busiest people in the world, it's very hard to create the time to do that stuff.
Yeah. It's so do you think then, if when we feel disconnected, I suspect that when we feel disconnected, there may be ways to see the edge of the coin within an arena that we might think we're disconnected from our purpose. So I had a conversation with a client this week, and I pointed out the presence of their purpose where they couldn't see it.
Mm.
It was through a value of conversations, through a conversation about values, actually, not necessarily purpose, but they were telling me something. I said, well, I can see that your value of so-and-so was present there because of this. And I went, oh, okay, yeah, I see that. And so I just wanted to say that sometimes when we are disconnected, it might not be such a great shift to then reconnect. But you said being busy. And I don't know why I had this is from my days of being on building sites and labouring. When you're like digging a ditch and you've got to dig a straight line, you can get very busy digging and not necessarily checking how straight you are. And only when you step back do you see this like banana shaped, oh, okay, And so like going back to the plan and looking at it, or just stepping back from what you're doing, rather than just being busy, because we can mistake being busy for being effective.
Yeah, it's a great way of avoiding what matters. Busy is the new lazy.
Busy is the new lazy.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
And I think what you've said is reminding me that you can connect to your purpose all the time, and I remember saying to people, you can be a purpose detective. So just move through the day, and when you feel that embodied sense of, we kind of know how it feels, don't we? If when we're on purpose, and I'm not sure I can articulate it. It's a felt sense, and you can move through the day and have conversations, and I think that's a really important thing to remember, that your purpose is there in how I talk to you, or how I send an email, or in how I talk to the person at the supermarket, or talk to my son when he's upset. It's about a way of being, and from there, the impact you have. So, you can sort of imagine it's this grandiose thing, but it's actually quite, it's actually quite small. It's like a fractal. And, if you have faith in that, then that will ripple out and have impact. So thanks for reminding me of that.
Oh, no, my pleasure. The idea of being a purpose detective really, oops, notepad was about to go, really interests me. I often say, when I'm talking about coaching, or people asking what coaching is, I usually say, well, listen, you're the one thing you use for everything. So, if you were a tool in a toolbox and that tool did everything on a building site, as a builder, you would take supreme care of that tool. It would go into a velvet wallet every night, it would be sharpened or honed, whatever you had to do. That it would be, your business relied on it. So that tool would be under lock and key every night and sort of taken to the building site on a sedan chair. And, because it does everything, it brings in your pay, it allows you to employ people, it creates houses or whatever you're building. Well, there's no difference from that tool than any person in life, because they are the one thing they use for everything. So I like the idea of being that detective and just going back and checking on yourself. Okay, how does this feel today? Do I feel like I'm being purposeful? Okay, and then it is simple. It can be small. It can be fractal. It doesn't have to be, as you said, grandiose. So it sounds like then you're at a place where you could maybe revisit your purpose. And I've got 8 post-it notes on my desk now, and I've been jotting things down. So this is now, I'm going to try and identify the edge of your coin.
Oh my goodness me!
Oh my word!
Go for it.
Yeah. Okay. There's something about being a magician. Maybe that's a metaphor. but I want to make sure that metaphor represents you at your greatest strength. But the impact you have is about helping. It's about maybe owning the genius of your edge. Yeah, because the edge of the coin can sometimes have words written on it, can't it?
Yeah.
Not that I know any Latin really, but on the edge of a pound coin, you'll find some Latin maybe. And I think everyone has the edge of a coin. And not only are you helping someone notice the edge of the coin, but that you help them read the words.
Mm.
And so when they read the words, they own the edge of their coin, or they own the genius, or they own the edge of the coin. I
think what I see is, and there's something I'm really proud of at the moment, actually.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, you're in purpose when there's that whole body, emotional, spiritual yes. And again, this might sound quite small, but to me it means the world. That I was working with a teacher. She won't mind me sharing the story because it's actually published in a journal. But she was a teacher teaching maths in the classroom, struggling with that context. It wasn't her natural environment. And as we unpicked it, it turns out that she's obsessed with nature. And this came from her mother, who apparently used to slam on the brakes, leap out of the car because she'd seen a rare orchid by the side of the road. And that was passed down to this woman. And she had grown up just loving nature and bugs and snails and, and dirt and all of that. And we talked about that. And it came up that she really struggled at school, like to the point where teachers would kind of belittle her. You won't come to anything. You know, you're stupid. The terrible things that people say, so careless. And so she kind of swallowed that. And it kind of became her purpose as she was in this classroom and seeing those kids struggling, that she had this deep sense of wanting to create something different. But there was a lot of work to do for her to believe that she was almost worthy of having an idea that's ambitious and taking it to management or a head teacher or whatever. So it took a long time, you know, to work through that, like you say, to own the edge. But then eventually, because this was so important to her, and I think what purpose gives you is like, what's more important than your fear? What's more important than your self-doubt? And that is like, okay, these kids were more important than that. And herself as a child was more important than this. So she got this proposal together for a forest school at her school. And she went to see her head. And there was something about the embodiment of her purpose that made her talk differently, stand differently, communicate differently. And we also had a whole community kind of behind her that we were like, come on, you can do this, you've got this, because that's important too. And she went and had that conversation. The head said, sounds amazing. I think we should do it. And just on social media, like a couple of weeks ago, I see photographs of kids. They're outside, they're playing in nature, they're learning, they're together. There's true equity. You know, the kids who struggle with maths and sitting still at a desk are kind of liberated, emancipated from perhaps an environment that wasn't serving them. And for this teacher, I mean, that is everything to me, because I think that the teachers we have, I think everyone's got that kind of dream, that what if, that purpose inside them. And I think when you connect with it, incredible things happen. And I've got dozens of stories like that.
So, okay, stories, okay. Right, okay. Sorry, my mind is flitting around now. So this is what happens. My mind shoots down an avenue, and then sometimes nothing. I'm like, oh, what was I thinking of? I've just interrupted you. So you got dozens of stories of those sorts of moments. I love that what's more important than their fear or than your fear? That's such a great question. And you seem to be the person that can help them go down that journey. Like you're holding, you said about magic, it's like you're holding some magic that people can access. And if they do, they get to find the yes on the edge of their coin of purpose. Who are you to hold that magic? That interests me. I still see you as a teacher in that sense. You know, in front of your classroom, you look magical. The students clearly can see that there was something different is possible here. You know, it's like the teacher of magic, the curator.
Yeah, that's maybe interesting. That's interesting.
Curator of magic. The curator of magic who helps people own the yes on the edge of their coin of purpose.
Yeah, and I think this is so interesting, and it just reminds me that it's that first part of the statement that feels so vulnerable. You know, when you know, to be truly seen for what you have and who you are kind of starts to hold you accountable. And I think maybe that was partly what I did, and what we did as a community as well was, you know, it's like, we've seen you. So if you think you're not going to do this, then there's going to be a bit of a fight, you know. And I think you can't unsee a bold vision. And I think, you know, I'm quite a calm person. People often say that about me, but I think when I witness something in people that feels very important or magical, I will really be a bit of a terrier with them. And I love the work of Michael Mead, who wrote a book called The Genius Myth. And he sort of says that, you know, we all have this genius, this seed of genius that we come into the world with. It's like an arrow that's pointing. And he worked with street kids in Los Angeles who were in gangs, and he would go in as a youth worker. And it was really urgent that he did this work, because the next week he might come back and they would be dead. So he saw it as his job. He would kind of talk to them, and then, sounds a bit, I'm not sure about the language, but he would almost kind of bless them. He would listen to them, find out their stories, see their genius, and bless them by saying, you know, this is your genius. And he's a very humble guy. But for example, there was a guy who he had this gift for language, like really foul language, right? He was like really creatively swearing or cursing, but he had something really unique and special. And so Michael Mead was like, you've got a gift for language. And so that was his exit, go and learn, study, and he went on and did different things. So that's just a really extreme example of saving lives. Because it gives us meaning, doesn't it? And we're longing for that, and if we don't have it, we can get lost.
we can. And I think that story, what you said just prior to that story, was about being truly seen. But then you're accountable because the cat is out of the bag. You can't put that back in the box. And I think there is a story there around being maybe overwhelmed or nervous, or I don't know, of realizing this is possible. I've got this inside of me. Someone else has witnessed it. Maybe not the only person to say this thing. It's, oh gosh, someone else has said this about me. Oh no, I'm not, I haven't got the power of language. I haven't, no, but you have. And then, well, what to do with it? I think that can sometimes be a cold face that is difficult to stay at. And that's where the power of coaching comes in, or collaboration, someone to help you investigate it and then take ownership over it. Because I would say life is going to be different if you become purposeful around your purpose. And that can be scary.
I think you've really hit the nail on the head there. Just with, being afraid of our own power. And Marianne Williamson quote, isn't it? I can't remember it, but it's, you're afraid of your own light, your own power. And yeah, I think you're right. You need a coach to kind of hold you accountable and keep seeing you, or friends, and then just to take a small step. It doesn't have to be a life-changing step, but what's the smallest step you can take to kind of step into purpose? Or other people might want to do something really extreme. But yeah, I think what you're saying there about there just being a lot of resistance is a really compassionate thing to name, because sometimes you're like, why don't you just go and do it? But actually, yeah, that resistance is wise, and we can also pay attention to that.
Yeah. Yes, because if okay, let's say someone's like I've said to you today. I said to you, you're the curator. Where's my note gone? You're the curator of magic, who allows people to own the yes on the edge of their corner purpose. Okay, so the cat is out of the bag, right?
It's a pretty good first draft. I'm gonna give it to you.
Thank you. And does that conjure up feelings of like, oh my gosh, whoa?
Yeah, definitely. I think something like, and I think it is that first part that kind of feels hot, feel risky. Because okay. it does mean kind of owning your space and your place.
Well, it's there, right? Like you it's there to be owned. It will be there. It will be there. And I think you said it feels hot, right? Okay. Well, if it is hot, like, okay, going into a sauna is hot. Sauna or steam? What am I thinking of? A sauna, yeah. You know how people sit on different seats, different altitudes in saunas?
Yeah.
And if you sit at the top, I mean, if you go walk into a sauna and then go straight to the top seat, good luck, as far as I'm concerned, because the air is like rarefied. It is bloody hot. And I don't do that. I kind of move in increments. And then when I'm at the top, I'll last for a while. And I think maybe having your purpose read back to you is a bit like,
yeah,
realizing I could go and sit at the top seat in the sauna, but that might be a bit much right now. But what's the small step I can take? And maybe it's just going into the sauna, sitting on the floor for a bit.
Yeah, I think so. And I come back to community. I think I heard someone, I love a place called the Mobius Institute, which is a real center of thinking and presence. And one of their founders talked about two things that are kind of the secrets to unlock society today. And one is the kind of flame of purpose that's kind of burning under the desk. We can't see it in each other, but it's there. And the other is community. And I think if we can combine those two things, because yeah, taking risks and being different and being in relationship with other people differently is risky. But if you can do that in community and be supported, and then it makes it much more fun and much more doable.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, yeah, sitting on the floor of the sauna. Yeah, I mean, my mind's already ticking over for what that kind of looks like, just to start to own this. And I think going back to practices, it's like you have to do this stuff every day, right? There's a poet called Mary Oliver, and just every day she would stand at the back door with her pen, pencil, and she would write something every single day. And she says she's written a lot of terrible poems, but she's written a few like magnificent poems. And that's the level of commitment that I think it takes, actually.
I would agree. I'm going to look up Mary Oliver now, not now, but after our call, along with lots of other things that you said as well. Have you heard of the book The Artist's Way?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you know the method of just writing every day. So for those of you who are watching who haven't heard of this, it's a book I encountered about 14 years ago. And the morning practice was to get an A4 pad and just wake up with a pen and start writing about whatever's in your head. And it had to make no sense. It couldn't, but it didn't matter. So you get up, why am I writing on this piece of paper? Oh my God, I hate this pen. My mouth is dry. I need the toilets. I'm going to do this today. Why did I do that? And then you do at least a side. And the idea, I think, is that you are getting out the chaff from your mind, and then it allows the wheat to come to the surface. So Mary Oliver, standing at the back door with a pen and pencil, write every day. You said that sometimes she writes poems which they're not really fit for much, but that's the chaff, and then that allows the wheat to come. So a daily practice of looking into, okay, what's my purpose? Am I being purposeful? What simple steps can I take? Where am I sitting in the sauna? Like, what's it feel like? What am I trying to create? What is my why? Who can I connect with? You said about connection with regards to the Mobius Institute. I think the flame of purpose plus community is a very, very strong point to investigate for me. I think this is why I do this. This is part of my community. Connecting with people. Life as a coach can sometimes be solitary. In fact, it can be solitary a lot of the time. So I like connecting. Oh wow, there's so much to discuss here.
No, likewise, and you're just so good at it, Rob, to just hear something, and the images that you create, and I think in images as well. So I know that the images you shared, I quite like to put them in my pocket and kind of, take them away. So and that's where creating a metaphor for purpose can be really useful as well. Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad that I think you've got something out of this today. I think I'm going to utter your purpose again, and then I'm going to ask you a question. So, Naomi, you are the curator of magic, and you help people own the yes on the edge of their coin of purpose. What small steps are you going to take now that you know this?
I think what I keep coming back to at this point in my life, and I've alluded to the sort of changes in life that kind of lead you to question or rethink or reframe. And I don't mind sharing that I lost my mum just over a year ago, and that will it's an undoing essentially of who you are. And then there's a kind of reconstellation process, and I keep coming back to writing, and I keep coming back to poetry and wanting to, and I think it's that thing of whenever I write stuff, people go, God, you're really good at that, and I kind of go, yeah, but it is something that connects me to that spirit of purpose. So I'm almost getting to the point of kind of rather than needing to articulate it necessarily, it's more that sort of sense of true connection to something bigger on more of a spiritual level. And it might be worth thinking about, when we think about purpose, you might have your inherited purpose from your family, and from society, which is to get good exam results, go to university, meet a partner, create a life. And then you might have a created purpose, which is kind of what we've been talking about, like making conscious your gifts and your impact. And then perhaps there's a third level of like your soul's purpose, when you truly connect to something deeper and universal within you and listen into that. And so I think that's kind of what's here for me at this phase of my life, is just being with, it's more about being. It's something to do with writing. So, to be more Mary Oliver is my answer to your question.
Okay, so I'm going to just adjust your life purpose statement slightly and say you're the poetic creator of magic.
Ooh.
Okay, who helps people own the yes on the edge of their coin of purpose. And maybe that's something we can do with purpose. We can just adjust it, and if that's how you connect with it, which is to be creative and to dive into poetry, great, because that might bring the curator of magic to the surface a bit more.
Yeah. It's a gateway, isn't it? That's, I guess, what we're talking about, an entry point to. Just finding another gateway to your purpose. Like, oh, this one doesn't seem so accessible now, it's a bit overgrown, right? There's some ivy across it, the handle's missing, okay, but over here, oh, there's a different door, right? What happens when I go through here? So I think moving around ourselves or moving around our purpose has value. Again, like, and I think there's, sorry to interrupt you, but I think the golden thread is still there. From me as a 4-year-old, through to being a teacher, through to being a coach, through to wherever writing may take me, it's the same thread. It's just manifesting in a different way.
Got me out thinking of a web instead of a thread. The thread is a web. So those points, there's different connecting points you can land on a web, like a spider's web. It's made of your golden thread, and it's all connected. So it can happen from different directions. I don't know, I might have just hijacked what you were saying there, but that's now what's leapt into my head.
I see it. Yeah.
Wow. I've got a proliferation of post-it notes on my desk now. Two have got the highlighter. You highlighted in some sort of pink. It says the poetic curator of magic. There you go. There we are. So the poetic curator of magic.
I'd like those in the post.
Second?
I'd like those in the post, please, Rob.
Sure. Yeah. But it's been an absolute pleasure to just talk openly about this with, well, just letting the golden thread of the conversation just take us where it wants to go.
Yeah, very much so. And I've got a poem with a golden thread in it. Would you like to hear it?
Yes, go for it.
So this is called The Way It Is by William Stafford. And there's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder what you're pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it's hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen. People get hurt or die, and you suffer and get old. Nothing you can do can stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread.
That sounds like a safety rail through life. Right. Not necessarily playing safe, but if you've got hold of that, that's a good thing. Thank you.
When you so much that we can't be certain about, to have that thread with you is a real resource that we can tap into, I think.
Yeah, and that's okay. So maybe we'll wrap up on that last point. There's so many things which are uncertain, but if we spend some time looking at inside and working around purpose and being purposeful, we can find something that is a more stable platform, that is more certain, the thread. Yeah. Oh my word, that's okay. That is a bountiful conversation.
Well, thanks, Rob.
Thank you so much. I think people are going to get a lot of value from listening to it.
Hope so.
Brilliant. That's it. I mean, I think it's a good place to end. We're under the hour. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
No, you're very welcome. It's one of my favorite subjects. So thanks for inviting me.